For this man, handling a knife was as natural as breathing. He lived by a simple rule. There was absolutely nothing he couldn't slice. A single, clean stroke was all it ever took to divide anything in his path. No matter the target, it would fall before his blade. He pushed himself to the absolute limit, building his strength from the ground up. He worked until his hands were nothing but blisters and calluses. This wasn't a hobby, it was a 20-year obsession. Ever since he dropped out of high school, he'd been chasing perfection with the blade. All that time and sweat eventually made him the undisputed knife master of Korea. In his world, perfection was just another day at the office, literally. His kitchen is a machine, pumping out VIP courses as fast as he can prep them. The restaurant is packed, with orders flying in faster than the staff can keep up. Another bell rings, signaling the next wave of work. The junior chefs are already feeling the heat, wondering where all the noise is coming from. Geomma Kang stays focused, ignoring the chaos of the kitchen with his earpiece in. His movements are a blur as he prepares the next dish. His assistants are struggling to stay on their feet. Another notification pings in his ear. It's the middle of September, right in the thick of a busy shift. His phone lights up with an annoying game notification for something called Blessing of Miracle M. He doesn't have time for games, so he just shoves it back into his pocket. He turns back to his station, but he isn't alone anymore. A pair of expensive leather shoes steps onto his clean kitchen floor. Geomma looks over, and he's clearly not happy about the intrusion. It's a local gangster boss, laughing like he owns the place with his goons in tow. The guy tells him it's time to finally give them an answer. The mobster stands there, flanked by his suited henchmen, waiting for Geomma to fold. He smiles, pretending to be polite, and tells his men to show Geomma the goods. They pop open a briefcase stuffed to the brim with 50,000 won bills. The boss is practically beaming now. He offers 300 million won up front, promising even more if the job gets done. But Geomma isn't interested in their money. In a flash, the light catches his blade as he makes his move. He draws his sashimi knife, the steel gleaming with lethal intent. The boss freezes, staring into Geomma's cold eyes as he addresses him. Geomma tells him flat out, this is a kitchen where hygiene is everything, and someone as filthy as him doesn't belong. The chef stands his ground in the vast, sterile kitchen. The intensity in the room spikes. Instead of being scared, the boss gets even more excited, calling him the Blade God. The blade flashes again. The goons immediately lose their cool and scramble back in a panic. Geomma just watches them retreat, completely unfazed by the threat. The boss peeks back one last time, promising that this isn't over yet. Geomma Kang heads outside for a quick smoke break, his mind still on the kitchen. His junior chefs watch him from a distance, intimidated by his silent intensity. One of them suggests he should take it easy and actually enjoy his life for once. Geomma doesn't even look up as he tells them he's never getting involved with those gangsters, regardless of the money. A phone pings in his hand, breaking the quiet of the alley. He brushes it off, telling them it's just another annoying game notification. He takes a long drag of his cigarette as the city lights glow in the background. The time is just after 1 a.m. on September 16th, and Blessing of Miracle M is begging for him to return. In his frustration, he fumbles with the device and accidentally taps the notification. He lets out a curse as the app starts to launch on its own. The phone screen glows brightly as it loads the game's interface. The Blessing of Miracle M title fills the display, urging him to touch the screen. Suddenly, the phone starts glitching out with a loud buzz. Geomma's eyes widen as a blinding light erupts from the handheld device. A few moments later, one of the assistants peeks into the alleyway to check on him, but the chef is nowhere to be found, only his phone lies. Discarded on the floor, still lit up. The assistant is confused as to why his boss would just leave his phone behind. He stands alone in the empty alley, the wind whistling past him. He figures the boss just went to take a break and laughs it off. He turns to head back inside, leaving the buzzing phone on the concrete. The phone glitches one last time as the screen fills with static. A message flashes. Transfer completed. And the progress bar hits 100%. A finger reaches out to tap a screen, but this time, it's not Geomma's old phone. On NeoTube, streamers are already calling Blessing of Miracle M the latest craze. On the App Store, the reviews are mixed, with people calling it just another generic gacha game. Despite the low ratings, millions of people were downloading it just for the characters. The main screen shows a massive academy in the background, set in a world of high fantasy. The game features elite students like Abel von Nibelung designed to draw in new players. It's a world of legendary heroes and academy life that seems entirely fictional. But for someone, this game is about to become a very real adventure. A blonde-haired hero stands prominently on the menu, ready for a quest. A cursor taps the screen repeatedly, navigating through the menus. Geomma finds himself in a daze, snapping at a persistent prompt that keeps poking him. He shakes his head, trying to clear the cobwebs from his mind. He stands on a crowded subway train, his reflection showing a face much younger than the one he remembers. Suddenly, he slams into a passenger with a heavy thud. He looks up, realizing he just bumped into a woman in the middle of the aisle. She looks back, asking if he's all right after the collision. She quickly apologizes and ducks her head as she moves past him. Geomma grips a subway pole as the train lurches, the announcement for Mapu Station echoing through the car. He steps off the train, still trying to wrap his head around his new reality. He taps his card at the turnstile, and it beeps to confirm he's been charged an adolescent fee. The elevator dings as he arrives at his floor, the metal doors sliding open to a dimly lit hallway. He enters the security code into his apartment door, the keypad beeping with every mechanical touch. Inside, he finds a Joaquin Academy acceptance letter sitting on the table, a stark reminder of his new life. It's official. Geomma Kang has been granted admission for the upcoming 2034 academic year. He tries to maintain a calm facade while his parents, off-screen, celebrate his achievement with pride. He forces a small smile, telling them he's going to go finish packing for his big move. Back in his room, he collapses into his desk chair, the weight of the situation finally settling in. He wonders how he's supposed to back out now when everyone is so genuinely excited for him. His eyes drift to a framed photo on his desk, and his expression suddenly darkens. It's a picture of him and his father together, both of them flashing cheerful peace signs. Memories of being called a genius and people asking about his hidden potential flood his mind. He looks at the letter again, wondering if the original owner of this body really was a prodigy. In this world, certain humans wield special powers that set them apart from the rest of society. These powers manifest as glowing energy and the ability to summon legendary weapons. They are essentially the combat skills from the Blessing of Miracle M game. High-tier users can manifest impenetrable shields and massive elemental blasts. According to the lore, most of these incredible abilities are inherited genetically through elite bloodlines. Students are groomed from a young age to master their gifts and protect humanity. The Joaquin Academy is the premier institution for training the world's next generation of heroes. It's a place where prestige and social standing are often tied to the strength of one's power. The academy entrance stands as a grand gate, beckoning the talented few. Only recently did they introduce a special admission scheme for students from non-hero backgrounds. The constant threat of the Demon King keeps the world in a state of high alert. A massive dragon roars, a symbol of the chaos that threatens to overwhelm civilization. Armies of orcs, skeletons, and goblins serve as the vanguard for the dark forces. He realizes the academy isn't just a school, it's a military forge for an inevitable war. He leans back in his chair, sighing as he thinks about the blessing he's been stuck with. Suddenly, a blue holographic system window flashes into existence right in front of him. The status screen shows a duration of only 30 seconds and a punishing 12-hour cooldown. He stares at his own lap, trying to process the absurdity of these limitations. 30 seconds with a 12-hour cooldown, he mutters, feeling a wave of despair wash over him. He leans in closer to the glowing light, hoping he misread the numbers on the display. His blessing is supposed to be from a blade god, yet his very name means blade demon. The summoned blade is only 12 inches long, barely enough to defend himself. Images of perfectly sliced sashimi and fresh sushi ingredients fill his mind as he looks at the knife. He groans and leans his head back, deciding it's better to just forget about the whole thing. He doesn't have a proper weapon to take with him to a place full of warriors. A variety of legendary arms float in a vision, each one looking more powerful than his small blade. High-rank armaments are priceless treasures that he could never hope to afford. On top of everything, the tuition fee for Joaquin is already steep enough to be a burden. He narrows his eyes, a flicker of his old master chef intensity returning to his gaze. He shuts his eyes tight, resolving to find a way through this mess using whatever he has. Geomma lets out a long, weary sigh, trying to steady his nerves for what comes next. He steps forward, walking through the bright light that floods the academy entrance hall. Despite the sweat on his brow, his gaze remains sharp and focused, the look of a seasoned professional. Now dressed in the crisp Joaquin Academy uniform, Geomma looks every bit the part of a serious student. He adjusts the strap of his bag, the dark fabric of his new uniform feeling heavy with responsibility. An academy inspector with a mohawk and striking blue eyes glares at him, his face twisted in annoyance. On the counter sit several wooden training swords, all marked down with prominent 30% off sale tags. Geomma stands before the official, the cheap wooden tools, the only weapons within his meager budget. He stands his ground, refusing to be intimidated by the inspector's looming and aggressive presence. The inspector's face hardens, his disdain for a special entrant with no backing clearly visible. The man's temper flares as he leans over the desk, ready to tear into the new recruit. He slams his palm onto the counter with a loud bang, rattling the discounted wooden swords. Geomma doesn't even flinch, staring back at the inspector with a cool, unimpressed expression. The inspector freezes in place, completely caught off guard by the boy's absolute lack of fear. "Boy!" the inspector bellows, but Geomma simply responds with a calm, steady "sir." He plainly states that he is a special entrant from an ordinary family, explaining his choice of gear. The inspector leans in, his intense blue eyes searching for any sign of a lie or hidden weakness. Geomma continues, his voice unwavering as he delivers a hard truth from his past life. "I believe only the weak blame their tools," he says, the words of a true master chef. A sudden, sharp aura radiates from Geomma, leaving the inspector completely and utterly stunned. It is the undeniable conviction of someone who has truly reached the pinnacle of their profession. His name tag, Geomma Kang, glints under the hall lights as his presence fills the room. The inspector is visibly shaken, his spirit overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the boy's resolve. Tears stream down the inspector's face as he breaks into sobs, declaring the boy to be truly goated. Geomma Kang stands at the counter, picking up a bundle of cheap wooden training swords for his classes. He politely thanks the clerk after finishing his purchase. Behind him, the other students are already whispering and judging his choice of low-grade gear. A girl with purple hair wonders aloud if he's some kind of special entrant. The elite crowd doesn't hold back, mocking his lowly appearance and saying he smells like a commoner. The massive academy inspector suddenly lets out a deafening shout to keep everyone in line. Geomma moves along, thinking this whole intense atmosphere feels way too much like being back in boot camp. He steps out into the massive campus, where the architecture looks more like a grand city than a school. Finally finding some peace, he takes a seat on a park bench to collect his thoughts. He's just relieved he managed to skip the inspection and the long entrance ceremony without any trouble. Now that he's alone, he can finally take a good look at his new surroundings. He stares off into the distance, still trying to wrap his head around being transported into this world. The school's buildings are towering and ornate, showing off just how much power and money is behind the place. Every corner of the academy seems designed to intimidate and impress any newcomer. This is Joaquin Academy, the most famous hero training school on the planet. He looks up at the massive clock tower that stands high above the central courtyard. It's a completely different feeling seeing all of this in person rather than on a small phone screen. He has to give them credit, the scale of the place is undeniably impressive. Geomma leans back, trying to enjoy a rare moment of quiet before things get complicated. Something catches his eye in the sky, and he sits up straight. He reaches into his bag and starts rummaging around for his most prized possession. He pulls out his old sashimi knife, the blade gleaming under the bright afternoon sun. He stands up, feeling the familiar weight of the tool he spent 20 years mastering in a kitchen. A memory of his old teacher flashes through his mind, screaming about the discipline required to wield a blade. A specific piece of advice from his training days starts to echo in his head. He runs a thumb along the flat of the steel, checking its balance. A quick flick of the metal gives off a sharp, clean ring that satisfies his expert ears. It seems the knife survived the trip in much better condition than he did. He gives the blade a professional spin, ready to see what he can do with his skills in this new body. But as he tries to channel his power, a red warning pops up. The cheap Daikso brand knife isn't high enough quality. Violent blue lightning begins to arc across the steel as the system goes into a dangerous overdrive. The energy surges out of control, crackling with a violet intensity that threatens to shatter the blade. A new error message flashes, warning him that his body's grade is way too low to handle this level of output. Geomma's face pales as he feels the massive surge of energy starting to backfire on him. The system continues to scream that his armament grade is far too low for the blessing he's trying to use. His vision begins to blur and glitch as the physical strain of the skill pushes him to his absolute limit. A final message appearing in front of him offers a mockingly pious blessing. A blinding flash of blue light erupts, turning his entire world white as the power peaks. His eyes bulge in shock as the raw rebound of the divine skill starts to tear at his muscles. He grips the knife tight, even as the wild electricity scorches his skin. The visual feed begins to distort and fragment under the sheer pressure of the surging energy. He lets out a pained scream as the overwhelming force completely overwhelms his fragile new body. A cacophony of laughter echoes in his mind as the energy peaks and starts to tear him apart. Everything starts to blur into a chaotic red haze of pain and digital static. He can barely choke out a gasp as the violent feedback from the skill hits him full force. He realizes with a surge of panic that if he doesn't stop this, the power might actually kill him. His vision glitches out completely, flickering like a broken monitor under the strain. Suddenly, he finds himself standing in a vast red digital grid, with lightning still arcing off his body. He looks around in confusion, sweat pouring down his face as he tries to process where he's been taken. He looks down at his uniform, wondering what the hell just happened to his reality. The sashimi knife slips from his numb fingers as he completely loses his ability to grip it. The blade hits the floor of the digital space with a heavy metallic clang. A sudden rush of wind sweeps through the area as the vision starts to break down. The entire digital dimension begins to crack and shatter like glass all around him. Light floods back into his world, blindingly bright as the subspace vanishes. Geomma blinks, his eyes slowly adjusting as the familiar surroundings of the park return. He takes a sharp breath, his heart still racing from the near-death experience. The quiet sound of birds chirping in the trees confirms that he's safely back in the physical world. He looks up at the Academy's massive buildings, feeling completely drained of all energy. A sudden, sharp throb in his head makes him wince and clutch his temples in agony. He groans, realizing that the physical rebound from using that divine blessing is way worse than he expected. His hand is trembling violently, the muscles refusing to settle down after the shock. He stands there for a long moment, trying to shake off the lingering effects of the electrical surge. He spots his sashimi knife lying on the pavement right where he dropped it. He stares down at the blade, contemplating whether it's safe to touch it again. Despite the pain, he knows he can't just leave his most valuable tool sitting out in the middle of a public park. He tries to convince himself that the pain was just because it was his very first time using the skill. As he reaches down to grab the handle, his hand continues to shake uncontrollably. He manages to wrap his fingers around the wood and lift the knife off the ground. But the moment he makes contact, another jolt of electricity fries him, sending him crashing backward. Meanwhile, over at the Academy's massive training grounds, the atmosphere is far more upbeat. A giant, Coliseum-style arena is packed with thousands of excited spectators. The crowd lets out a massive cheer as they wait for the main event to get underway. Students in their crisp, official uniforms buzz with excitement, debating who will win the competition. Everyone is eager to see the high-level combat skills of the Academy's top-tier students. Up in the VIP section, a group of wealthy-looking men and a noble are deep in conversation. One of them grumbles about the absolute fortune he had to pay for his child's admission into the school, clearly surprised by the astronomical costs of such a prestigious education. Their idle chatter is cut short as the crowd suddenly erupts in a fresh wave of anticipation. Word quickly spreads through the stands that the Blade Emperor has finally arrived to watch. A tall, stocky man with silver hair takes his seat, leaning heavily on a gold-handled cane. This is Siegfried von Nibelung, one of the legendary 7 Stars heroes known as the Blade Emperor. He gazes out over the arena with a focused, unmoving intensity that silences those nearby. Despite his age, his stern presence alone is enough to command the undivided respect of everyone in the stadium. Siegfried von Nibelung sits in his elevated seat, looking down at the gathered students with a mixture of boredom and quiet pride.